I actually have to admit something to you before we really get into things today.
All right, lay it on me.
Well, I walked into the studio today, right?
Yeah.
I physically walked through the door. I sat down in this chair. I put the headphones on.
But you weren't actually here.
Exactly. I wasn't here at all. My brain was completely occupied with rewriting an email I sent, like, 2 hours ago.
And probably simultaneously worrying about some project you've got due next week.
Next Tuesday, yes. My shoulders were basically touching my ears. And I realized as we were prepping for this deep dive that this is my baseline.
That constant rushing.
I am constantly rushing, even when I am sitting completely still. If you are listening to this right now, does that sound familiar to you, or am I just the neurotic one here?
You're definitely not neurotic. You are describing the standard operating procedure for the modern human condition. You're just swimming in the water we all live in right now.
It feels like I'm a ghost in my own machine.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
That's the phrase that kept popping up in my head while looking through our research for today. Being a ghost in your own body. Because think about it, we are hyper-connected.
Highly productive.
Right, technically successful on paper, but we are strangely absent from the actual experience of living our lives.
We are.
And honestly, it scares me. It touches on this deep fear you and I have talked about, that success is just a mirage. Like, I'm running toward this horizon, but the faster I run...
Whatever way it gets.
Yes.
That is the tragedy of modern achievement. We become entirely obsessed with the horizon. We live completely in a future we are desperately trying to control, or, a past we're regretting.
Meanwhile, the ground beneath our feet.
We miss it entirely. The actual sensation of being alive right now gets completely skipped over. It's phantom living.
Phantom living, that hits really hard. So today we are doing a deep dive into a solution for this. We're pulling together some incredible ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience to find a way out of this trap.
And we should probably clarify right off the bat what kind of solution we mean.
Good point. I want to be very clear to everyone listening. We're not talking about another productivity hack.
Right, no new calendar apps.
We aren't talking about the Pomodoro technique. We are talking about pure biology, specifically the breath.
The breath. And I can already hear the collective eye roll from our audience.
Oh, totally.
People are thinking, just breathe. That's your big advice. I have a mortgage. I have a hostile takeover to deal with.
Exactly, because that was my initial reaction too. It feels soft. It feels like something you'd read on an inspirational poster in a dentist's waiting room. Just breathe.
But the research we're unpacking today suggests this isn't soft at all.
No, it's not.
It is high-performance technology. We just need to strip away all the modern wellness marketing and look at the actual mechanics. We are talking about a concept called ānāpānasati.
Anapanasati, break that down for us, because that's the core of what we're looking at.
So it's a Pali word from the Buddhist tradition. Ana means inhale, apana means exhale, and sati means mindfulness.
So mindfulness of breathing.
Right. But here's the key. The Buddha didn't teach this as just a simple relaxation technique to feel a little better. He called it the direct way to purify the mind.
Which sounds very spiritual, but it's grounded in our physical bodies.
Completely. It is a biological backdoor into the human nervous system.
Okay, let's get technical then. Because if I'm going to actually buy into this, and I want our listener to really get this, I need to understand the mechanism.
Fair enough.
How does simply watching air go in and out of my nose compete with the sheer complexity of a 60-hour work week? If I am deeply stressed about a deadline, how does breathing fix my problem?
To answer that, we have to look at what happens to your brain when you are in that rushing state you described earlier.
The email panic.
Exactly. When you're worried about that email, your amygdala,
Your fear center.
right? Your fear center is lighting up like a Christmas tree. You're pumping cortisol and adrenaline into your bloodstream. You are basically in a low-grade fight-or-flight mode.
So, biologically speaking, my body thinks I am running from a tiger, even if I am just staring at a spreadsheet on my laptop.
Precisely. And here's the real kicker. In that state, your prefrontal cortex actually goes offline.
Wait, really? The prefrontal cortex, that's the part responsible for logic and strategy, right?
Logic, strategy, empathy, long-term planning. It gets inhibited by the fear response.
Yeah.
You literally become cognitively dumber when you are rushing.
Wow. So my anxiety over doing a good job is actually making me worse at the job I'm anxious about.
Exactly. You are operating with a downgraded processor. Now, this is where the breath comes in. It is completely unique.
Because it bridges the conscious and unconscious.
Yes. It is the only function of the autonomic nervous system that you can consciously take control of. You can't just tell your heart to beat slower.
Right. I can't tell my stomach to digest my lunch faster.
But you can take the wheel of your breath.
Just like a manual override.
That's the handle. When you consciously slow your breath down and pay attention to it, you send a physical signal up the vagus nerve directly to the brainstem.
Which tells the body what?
It forces the body into the parasympathetic state, the rest and digest mode. You are chemically altering your state of consciousness to bring that prefrontal cortex back online.
There was a phrase in our source material that I absolutely loved for this: interrupting the trance of automaticity.
The trance of automaticity, yes.
Can we unpack that? Because I genuinely feel like I live my entire life in that trance.
It's the autopilot we all run on. You drive home from work and don't remember the turns you took. You eat a sandwich while answering Slacks and don't even taste the food.
Neuroscientists call this the default mode network, don't they?
They do. It's where our minds naturally drift when we aren't focused on a specific task. And usually that drift takes us toward ruminating on the past or projecting catastrophe into the future.
So when we stop and focus on the breath, we are literally switching networks in the brain.
You are stepping out of the rushing river of thought and climbing up onto the solid bank. The breath acts as the anchor because it is the only thing about you that is always in the present tense.
That's a profound way to look at it. You can't breathe in the past.
And you can't breathe in the future. If you are with the breath, you are here.
It's almost an act of rebellion, isn't it?
How so?
Well, think about the economy we live in. It's constantly screaming at you, you are not enough, you need to buy this, you need to achieve more, hustle harder. So simply pausing to breathe is a radical act of resistance against that entirely.
I love that. It's a declaration of sovereignty. You are telling yourself, I do not need to become someone else to be worthy right now. I do not need to achieve one more thing to be whole.
It just stops the treadmill cold.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm with you on the philosophy, and the biology makes total sense. But I want to play the role of the ambitious, highly stressed professional here, because frankly, that is who I am.
Go for it.
This all sounds fantastic for a yoga retreat in Bali. But how does this apply when I have a board meeting in 10 minutes, the quarterly numbers are down, and I absolutely need to perform?
This is a crucial question. This is where we have to bridge the gap between the meditation cushion and the conference room.
Right.
There's a great example from the research we compiled about a CEO preparing for a very high-stakes negotiation.
Yeah.
Now, normally, what do you do in that 10-minute window before a massive meeting?
Oh, I rehearse, I armor up, I try to anticipate every single objection they might throw at me.
You're pacing the room.
Getting ready to go to war, basically.
Right. You tighten up, you constrict. But this CEO, in our example, does the exact opposite. She closes her office door, she sits down, she closes her eyes for just 60 seconds.
60 seconds? That's nothing.
And she simply follows 3 full cycles of breath. Inhale, exhale.
And what is the actual strategic advantage there? Because to an outsider, it looks like she is just wasting valuable prep time.
The advantage is cognitive flexibility.
Meaning what?
By calming her nervous system, she completely shifts her internal state. She moves from an intention of winning and dominating, which is a very rigid and brittle state.
If things don't go exactly your way, you break.
Exactly. She moves from that to an intention of serving and co-creating, which is highly flexible. She isn't just reacting to her own anxiety anymore. She is actually responding to the reality of the room.
Ah, so she is able to read the room better because she isn't so busy reading her own fear.
Spot on. There is a phrase that sums this up perfectly. Presence precedes performance.
Presence precedes performance. I honestly need to tattoo that on my forehead.
It's a game changer. You cannot lead effectively if you are lost in your own head. If you walk into a room vibrating with stress, you trigger the mirror neurons in everyone else.
You make them defensive before you even open your mouth.
But if you walk in grounded, you change the actual physics of the negotiation.
There was another story in our notes that really stuck with me. It was regarding a young entrepreneur and her key investor. I think this illustrates the difference between reacting and responding incredibly well.
Yes, the nightmare scenario for any founder. You're launching a startup, you've poured your entire life savings into it, and suddenly, out of nowhere, your lead investor pulls the plug.
Which is the exact moment usually followed by sheer panic. A thrown laptop, maybe a complete breakdown. The internal narrative immediately becomes, I am a failure, it's all over, I'm gonna have to live in a cardboard box.
That is the story the brain creates to make sense of the sudden pain. But the entrepreneur, in this specific case, uses the breath to create a wedge between herself and that panic.
Right, she goes outside.
She leans against a sun-warmed brick wall outside her office, takes 5 very slow breaths, and uses that brief pause to separate the story from the fact.
Walk us through that distinction, because when you're in the heat of a moment like that, the story feels exactly like a fact.
It really does. But the fact is simply this: the investor pulled out. I am still here. My team is still here. We still have some options.
And the story.
The story is, I am ruined. Everyone is going to laugh at me. I am an absolute fraud.
So the breath creates just enough space to see the difference.
Just a microsecond of clarity. It allows you to see the fact without drowning in the story. And that allows her to pivot with resolve rather than reacting out of blind panic.
But I think it is really important to clarify something for you listening at home right now. The mindfulness didn't magically make the investor come back.
No, it's not magic. It's not the law of attraction.
It didn't instantly fix her bank account. So what was the actual tangible payoff?
The payoff was the integrity of the process. In a corporate world that is completely obsessed with immediate results, focusing on the integrity of your process is revolutionary.
If you take care of the moment takes care of the result.
Exactly. If you make a business decision from a place of sheer panic, you will almost certainly make this situation worse. If you make that same decision from a place of clarity, you give yourself the best possible chance of success.
It's really about optimizing the machine, your brain, before you ask it to solve the complex problem.
You wouldn't drive a race car with the emergency brake engaged. Panic is the emergency brake.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's pivot a bit here. We've talked a lot about work, which is obviously huge, but where this absence, this phantom living really hurts us, I think, is in our personal relationships.
Well, without a doubt.
We have all been there, sitting across from a partner or a good friend at dinner. We are physically sitting right there, but we are checking sports scores under the table, or we are half listening while planning what brilliant point we are going to make next.
We mistake proximity for connection. We assume that because our physical bodies are occupying the same room, we are together. But human beings are incredibly sensitive to attention. We know instinctively when we are being managed rather than actually heard.
Our sources brought up a Tibetan practice for this called Tonglen. Now, usually when I hear Tibetan terms, I expect something very esoteric. Lots of bells, maybe some robes. But the application here seems surprisingly practical for modern relationships.
It really is. Tonglen traditionally translates to giving and taking. It is a meditation practice where you literally breathe in suffering, often visualizing it as dark smoke, and you breathe out compassion or light.
Which completely flips our usual human instinct, right? Usually we want to breathe in the good vibes and push all the bad stuff as far away as possible. This is running right into the fire.
It does. It smashes the ego's desire to constantly protect itself. But for our everyday purposes, we can simplify the core lesson of Tonglen to this. To truly see another person, you must first be fully here yourself.
You become a vessel rather than a reactor.
Exactly.
There was a specific scenario outlined that I think literally everyone can relate to. A couple arguing about finances, a classic high-tension stressor.
Very common.
One partner says you spend too much money, and the other partner instantly hears you are completely irresponsible, and boom, off we go to the races.
Yeah, the standard escalation ladder. Defensiveness leads directly to an attack. The attack leads to withdrawal or more attacking.
But imagine if, mid-fight, one of them just stops. They feel that heat rising up in their chest, the tightening of their throat. They take one deliberate breath, and they say out loud, wait, I am feeling really defensive right now. Can we just start again?
It changes everything.
But that feels almost impossible in the heat of the moment. It feels like you need a superpower to pull that off.
It is a superpower. Psychologists call it a pattern interrupt. It acts as an emotional reset button that instantly shifts the dynamic from combat to collaboration.
And why does that work so well?
Because you have stepped out of the automatic reaction, the amygdala hijack we talked about earlier, and you step back into the present moment. You suddenly realize you aren't fighting an enemy, you are trying to communicate with your partner.
It's deep listening, which you absolutely cannot do if you are busy reloading your argument while they are still talking.
Listening requires an emptiness of self. You have to set you aside for just a moment to actually let them in. That is what the breath facilitates. It clears your internal buffer.
I want to circle back to something that I think is the elephant in the room for a lot of high performers listening to this. It's the fear of passivity.
Ah, yes. The Zen vegetable fear.
Yes. The Zen vegetable. Their deep-seated fear that if I become so content just breathing and being in the now, I'm going to completely lose my edge.
That ambition will just evaporate.
Right. Am I going to stop wanting to build incredible things? Am I going to stop trying to make money? Because let's be honest with ourselves, ambition is a huge part of my identity. If I am perfectly happy just breathing in and out, why on earth would I keep grinding?
This is probably the single greatest misunderstanding of mindfulness in the West. People think equanimity means apathy. It really doesn't.
So how do we reconcile the two?
There is an analogy from the ancient text that I absolutely love for this. Think of a leader holding their vision, their ambition, like a bird holding a small twig in its beak.
The bird and the twig, tell me more about that.
So, a bird holds a twig firmly enough to actually build a nest. It has purpose, it has direction, it is industrious, it is actively building a home.
It's getting things done.
Yes. But it holds that twig loosely enough that if it suddenly needs to fly, say a predator appears or the branch it's standing on breaks, it can drop the twig instantly. It isn't chained to the twig.
That is a really powerful image. So for us, the twig is the goal, the big project, the IPO.
Exactly. The Buddha taught detachment from delusion, not detachment from life itself. You can absolutely pursue excellence, you can build a massive business, you can strive for a promotion with fierce dedication, but you do it without the desperate clinging to the final outcome.
So you are aligned with your goal, but not resigned to it defining you.
Correct. Think about it practically. When you operate from a place of deep fear, thoughts like, I must hoard money, I must destroy the competition, I must win this to be lovable.
You make very brittle decisions.
You overreact to minor market fluctuations, you burn out your team. But when you operate from a place of discernment, which comes directly from that inner stability we've been talking about, you make much wiser investments of your time and capital.
This connects deeply to the concept of ānāpānasati, right? Impermanence.
Yes, ānāpānasati. The fundamental truth that things constantly change, money comes and goes, markets crash and soar. If your internal state of mind is tied directly to the stock market, you are on a roller coaster that you literally cannot get off.
So recognizing impermanence doesn't mean you just throw your hands up and don't invest.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It means you invest with a cooler head, because you already know the nature of the game is change. You aren't paralyzed with shock when things inevitably shift.
It really seems like we are redefining what success actually looks like. Because if we aren't just blindly chasing the numbers anymore, what exactly are we chasing? The research brings up this fascinating concept of the bodhisattva in the boardroom.
This is such a beautiful concept. In the Mahayana tradition of Buddhism, the bodhisattva is an awakened being who doesn't just escape to a quiet cave in the mountains to enjoy their own enlightenment.
They stay right here in the mess of the world.
They return to the busy marketplace to serve others.
It's the idea that true spiritual maturity isn't about leaving the chaotic world behind, but actually engaging with it more fully, more effectively.
Exactly. And we have massive historical evidence of this balance. This isn't just nice theory. Look at Leonardo da Vinci. He would spend hours just observing the way light hits a single leaf, or the way water naturally swirls in a riverbed. That deep, grounded presence is exactly what made his incredible art and his engineering possible. Or look at Steve Jobs.
Jobs is a really great example because he was notoriously intense and driven, yet he openly credited his Zen practice for the famous simplicity and elegance of Apple's design.
He understood that focus is actually a function of excluding the unnecessary. You cannot simplify a product if your own mind is a cluttered mess. You can't see the pure essence of a phone if you're distracted by 100 other anxieties.
So these geniuses weren't successful despite their ability to be present.
They were successful because of it.
They truly understood that doing flows directly from being.
That is the core thesis of all of this. You cannot give what you do not embody. If you are internally fragmented and rushing, your work will eventually reflect that fragmentation. Your leadership will be erratic. Your product will feel confused.
But if you are internally whole,
your work will have a resonance, a certain quality of depth that you simply cannot fake.
It really reframes the ultimate question we ask ourselves. It stops being, how much can I possibly achieve in this lifetime? And it becomes, how fully can I actually live it?
And that is the ultimate reframing. Because you can climb every corporate mountain, you can close every massive deal, and you can get 1 million followers online. But if you aren't actually there to experience it, if you are just a ghost in the machine,
what was the point of any of it? You miss your own life.
You miss it completely.
Success without presence is emptiness, dressed in gold. That line from our notes really stuck with me. It is haunting.
It's a sobering thought. Because the real tragedy of modern achievement isn't failure.
No, we can always recover from failure.
Failure is actually a fantastic teacher. The real tragedy is absence. It is showing up everywhere. On email, on countless Zoom calls, on social media feeds. everywhere except in your own actual life.
It's reaching the very end of the road and realizing you were never really there for the journey. That hits incredibly hard. So, what is the invitation here for you listening? Because I really don't want to leave people, or myself for that matter, feeling heavy about all the countless times we haven't been present. I don't want to induce a guilt trip here.
No, absolutely not. Guilt is just another form of being stuck in the past anyway.
Mm?
The invitation here is that you do not have to wait.
You don't have to wait for arrival.
You don't have to wait for the perfect bank account balance. You don't have to wait for retirement to finally take a deep breath and actually enjoy the taste of your morning coffee. The life you are desperately seeking isn't somewhere out there in the future.
It is happening right now.
It is unfolding in the quiet miracle of being alive, right in this exact second. The wisdom we've looked at today urges us to start with the very next breath, not the one after you finish listening to this deep dive, this one right now.
And that is what makes this so incredibly accessible. It isn't a month-long retreat you have to book in advance. It isn't a $10,000 executive seminar. It is literally just a single breath you have to take.
And if you meet that breath with your full attention, you have already arrived.
I think that is the perfect place to leave it. A massive thank you to you, our listener, for diving deep with us today.
Yes, thank you for being here.
So here's something to chew on before we go. What if the feeling of success you've been chasing all these years isn't an achievement you unlock, but just a frequency you tune into by finally paying attention? Go take that breath. We'll see you next time.